When you're the world champion of chess, people look to you for two things. Number one, dominance. Or number two, exciting chess when the results aren't always going your way. And in the case of Magnus Carlsen, in day 2 of the Lindores Abbey Rapid challenge, we got a little bit more of the latter. Let's start off with his game against Yu Yangyi. Yu Yangyi had the white pieces and started out with a queen's gambit. Players got out to a semi-Slav, knight d7, queen c2. Mainline stuff, and here black usually plays the move bishop d6, and all sorts of other things happen. However, in this position, Magnus Carlsen, in his usual opening surprise style, uncorked what, according to my database, is a novelty, the move a5. In this position, the move a5 almost never gets played in chess in general, both online and over the board. But specifically over the board chess, I did not find a game in my database where a5 ever happened in this position. However, we can settle our excitement down just for a moment, because in the next few moves, we transpose back into theory that is known. This sometimes happens in openings where, through a different move order, you get to more familiar territory. In usual semi-Slav style, black waits for white to move this bishop once, then takes on c4, making it move a second time, arguing that this is getting in the way of white's development. And now something very funny. In this position that Yu Yangyi and Magnus Carlsen reached, they transposed to a game played between two players you might have heard of, Anatoly Karpov and Mikhail Tal, 1973 Moscow finals. Pretty funny, right? After bishop b4, which is what happened in that game, d takes c5 happened. Yu Yangyi played d takes c5, but Karpov played the move rook d1. I really wonder if the players even knew about this because of just the weird transposition of the game. After d e5, knight e5, knight d4, Yu Yangyi does not want to trade the knights, potentially eyeing knight f5, maybe expanding in the center with e4 and getting his bishop out. Magnus plays a move which looks very, very strange and very anti-positional, c5 and knight b5. He allows the knight unlimited access to the light squares on the queen side. He kind of locks in this bishop on b4. At first glance, it also looks like he allows the knight to get to d5. But then we kind of see the point. Bishop e6, trading off white's powerful bishop, and now a really interesting move. F takes e6. First of all, there is, of course, the tactical problem of queen e6, knight c7. Yes, but it's just kind of funny to see such a seemingly innocuous, harmless-looking pawn capture. But in reality, what Magnus wants here is to open the rook and launch a direct attack on Yu Yangyi. And we actually see him do just that. Yu Yangyi plays e4, trying to get his dark-squared bishop out. Knight h5, and suddenly we see the intention. We saw a similar knight hop in yesterday's game of the day, Nakamura versus Alireza Firouzja. And that's why these patterns overlap. It's very important that if you're watching all these videos, you're actually picking up on some of these patterns. And so after knight h5, Yu Yangyi responds knight e2. He did not want to allow this knight any further access. And he also, with knight e2, kind of wants to render this bishop sort of useless. This bishop is not now targeting anything, it's just sort of standing there. And now, Magnus goes caveman style. g5. Listen, in same side attacking chess, and what same side means is when the kings are castled on the same side, it's rare you get to attack with your pawns, because usually what that means is you're weakening your own king. Magnus couldn't care less, and just goes g5, g4, knight g3, Yu Yangyi looking to trade the knights, queen h4. The trade, but he hasn't really alleviated a whole lot of pressure. In fact, if anything, he traded off one of his king's defenders. You can kind of argue that this bishop is defending the king, but not so fast. And so Yu Yangyi plays f4, looking for some sort of simplification here. Pawn takes f3. And now Yu Yangyi not taking on f3, because obviously there is a break coming. Queen takes h3 is possible. He says, I'm just going to go knight c7. And this is where Magnus missed his chance. This is where things went totally off the rails. The way Magnus was supposed to continue here is disregard these two attacks entirely and play king h8. And things go just totally insane here. After knight a8, rook g8. Magnus gets his last piece plugged into the attack. And he even has ideas in the future, like maybe c4, bringing this bishop back into the action on one of these diagonals. And all of his pieces are going to be attacking the king. There is some completely insane variations in this position. I'm going to give you 1, as usual, just to show you how insane the computer really is. Rook f2. Queen takes h3. Bishop f4. Knight d3. The knight cannot be taken because of rook takes g2. So now you play bishop h2, covering the entry point on this side and getting this out of danger. If knight takes f2 here, there is bishop e5 check. And after rook g7, you take, and take like this. So after bishop h2, the best move for black is c4. One of many interesting moves to play the move bishop c5, as I said. But there's other things. Black can also bring the rook forward, avoiding the bishop e5 idea. For example, rook g5, so that there's always a square for the king. But enough of this. In the game, Magnus played the natural-looking f takes g2, taking a pawn further. And this is where Yu Yangyi started fighting back. Queen takes g2, check. King h8, and now, rather than going for the rook, he anticipates the danger on the g-file. Knight e6, rook g8, and bishop g5. And all of a sudden, it's not so clear who is attacking who. And what I really mean by that is, I'm pretty sure Magnus is under attack now. After takes, queen g5, there's a big amount of simplification, rook g8, h4, but still Magnus is pressuring. Magnus is pressuring. He finds the right way to continue to put pressure on white. Usually, bishop and knight are superior to a rook. h6, so we see rook f5. But here it's actually very tricky to coordinate these pieces in the right way. And so after knight d3, going for this, b3, takes, king g7, rook d1. Magnus sacrificed the queenside pawn to bring the knight back to c5. Maybe take this in the future, bring the knight out, and advance the a-pawn. In this position, the last thing that you're thinking about is getting mated. And I want you to just keep that thought in mind, because watch what unfolds. Rook e5, rook c8, king g2. Seemingly harmless play by white. Rook c7, Magnus covers all checks. Rook d8, okay, some worry maybe along this, okay, but not a problem. Knight takes a4. Rook e8, let's bring the knight right back. And now we seem to have a pretty simple game plan. The only thing you need to avoid is checks and perpetual. King f3. What is Yu Yangyi up to? What is he trying to do here? Let's just push our pawn. King g4. I don't see it. Don't really know what he's threatening. a3. And that's where it proved to be the fatal mistake. When you are somehow under attack, there are some checks brewing around your king. Sometimes it's not the checks that will kill you. It's the mating net that will kill you. It's the quiet moves that take away the squares of your pieces and of your king. You can pause the video here if you'd like, and look for a way that white shuts down black's king's safety. And while you're at it, like I said, you can click the like button, drop a comment. Alright, rook g8 check, king f7, and now not a second check, but the move king f5. And we're really seeing the problem here. The problem is that if you play something like a2, g6, king e7, rook e8 is mate. You're mated. The king's purpose here is to shut down these squares. So, let's back up for a second. You cannot play a2. So after king f5, what you might have to do is stop g6, but the problem with that is the only way really to stop that is to sacrifice your rook entirely and then try to get this weird, messy endgame, two pieces, the two rooks. It's lost. a2, it's lost. Not gonna work. So, what can you play? Well, at this point, you can't really do a whole lot. I mean, g6 is the end of the game. The game actually ended with knight d7, g6, king e7, and now the dagger. The king wants to run away, e5. Maybe this is the move that Magnus missed, but this is the move that proves fatal. The threat of rook e8 mate is unstoppable. Yes, you can play knight f6, then you get mated by me taking your knight. Very funny position. So let's back up. If a3 was the fatal blunder, which allowed this mating net, what should Magnus have done instead? Well, there is this move, rook d7, simply offering a trade, and then if you just continue to hang out along the c-file, there's king g6, which is a hilarious move, just disallowing king f5. If there's check, I can block. That's one way. Another thing that Magnus could have done, rather than allowing rook g8 and king f5, is a really funny move, knight b3. This is probably the last thing that you're thinking about in this position, but the idea is as follows. If rook g8, king f7, king f5, now knight d4 check. A move that looks impossible, but is possible. because I cannot take you. My rook is stuck defending my other rook. So I'm just in time with this knight hop. So you should not play the move a3 after king g4. There's also other ways. You can go knight d7 in this position. And the idea is actually quite similar. After king f7, there is another check. So you're basically just in time to check me right when I'm setting up a mating net with g6 and rook e8. In the game, this was missed by Magnus. And so after knight d7, g6, king e7, e5, resignation happened, and Yu Yangyi won the game. But a super exciting game of chess. And don't go anywhere, because we're about to show you another game from today's Lindores Abbey where Magnus played exciting chess all the way through, but then ended up walking into a very, very similar situation. His game against Jan Krzysztof Duda. I believe that this is the first time Jan Krzysztof defeated Magnus, but I might be mistaken. There was some debate of whether or not it had ever happened. I actually am not familiar. Once again, the opening was a barn burner. It was craziness. It was a 4 knights English, bishop b4, queen c2, castles knight d5. Now, I warn you, those of you in the chat that are not familiar with this theory, buckle your seatbelts. Rook e8, queen f5, d6. Discovered attack on the queen, takes, queen h5. d5, a3, bishop back to f8. It looks like two scholars who are like, 8 years old, have... scholastic players, I should say, not scholars, who don't know what the heck is going on about the chess game, but bishop d3 threatening mate in 1. But actually, this whole variation, up until this position, right here, knight d4, is theory. This is all theory. I'm not going to sit here and explain all of it to you. Just believe me that it's theory. Right up until this moment. Here, the move that's played all the time is rook g4, pressuring g2, and maybe rook g6. Magnus plays queen d5. And we see a beautiful, beautiful positional game from here on out by Jan Krzysztof. He trades the queens, kicks the rook out, plays knight b5, and basically takes advantage of Magnus's shattered pawn structure, killing his activity throughout the entire game. Rook e7, bishop f6, king f2, solid, consolidates in the center, and focuses his strengths on the queen side. Advancing with b5, bishop f4, a4, g4, not allowing not allowing black any counterplay on this side of the board, in the center, on the king side. And the critical moment of the game came right around here, where Magnus traded off into a opposite colored bishop endgame, but made a fatal error. So right around here, Magnus needed to anticipate rook b1 with pressure and the rook takes a4 tactic. But instead he played rook e7, kind of lazily taking control of the e-file, and missing the fact that perhaps here there is rook takes a4. I mean, I dare not suggest that Magnus Carlsen missed anything, but we do have to wonder. Maybe he underestimated something in White's position. Bishop c4, trading off, and in a position where you're down a pawn, there's opposite colored bishops, you don't have a lot of mobility, you just have to buckle down and try to defend as best as you can. But watch what happens. Bishop d6, rook d7, Jan Krzysztof starts to expand a little bit on the king side, and all these pawns looking really delicate. So he gives a check, he gets a little bit closer with his rook, always eyeing a pressuring move here, maybe h5 in the future, but this bishop does control. Rook b8, rook e6, and here you would have expected something like king f7, maybe rook f6, maybe rook e5, but no. In stunning fashion, Magnus plays king h5. Anticipating that rook h6, king g4 was coming, but forgetting that, similar to the Yu Yangyi game, there is this move king g3. And after king g3, you cannot stop rook h6 mate. Very peculiar turn of events. We get 2 Magnus games in a day, 2 Magnus mating nets, and 2 Magnus losses. Now, actually, both of these losses that Magnus had with the black pieces contribute to the overall theme of the tournament, which is something like White is winning over 90% of the games. I don't know what is going on in the Lindores Abbey Rapid Challenge, but what I do know is that it's making our Game of the Day recaps that much more exciting. With that in mind, hope you enjoyed these 2 games today. You can click probably to the left of me, or to the right of me, probably to the left of me, for some of our other videos, and we will see you in the coming days.